Congratulations, folks. We made it through 2020. Let's give you a round of applause. This is Pete, and he's been very frustrated that he has not been featured in a recent video, and he wanted to say Happy New Year's. There you go. Guys, welcome back. It is officially 2021. 2020 is behind us. Now, although there wasn't a ton of new releases, there was a handful of really good movies that I absolutely loved. Being that there wasn't a lot of theatrical releases, a lot of things got pushed to streaming, really gave us the opportunity to see a lot of really good independent and smaller thrillers and horror movies. And there are some really fun ones that we're going to talk about today. Before we get into my top 10 2020 horror movies, I wanted to say to my returning subscribers, guys, thank you so much. 2020 was my first year on YouTube. I've been at it for about 6 months, and it has been an absolute blast. Thank you for every like, comment, everybody that's subscribed and shared and followed me over to Instagram. Thank you so much. There is so much content to watch on YouTube. There is so many people talking about movies and horror and all the stuff that I talk about, that we talk about on this channel. And I just thank you guys so much. This isn't just a channel for me. This is a channel for you guys, for everybody to talk about movies. So like I always say in the comments, I respond to every single comment on my Instagram and my YouTube videos. I respond to everybody. I love having conversations with every single one of you, so continue to do that. Thank you so much. And one more thing, going into the new year, I want to bring you guys into the videos a lot more. Later on down in 2021, I will have a Patreon, and that is mainly going to be a place to let you guys control the videos. But until that happens, it's going to be done through Instagram. I want to make my Instagram kind of the communication hub between me and you. In stories, I'm going to be doing surveys and posts to figure out what videos you want me to do next. You guys are going to decide a lot of the videos going into 2021. So head over to my Instagram, follow me there, and let's continue the conversation over there and down below in 2021. Now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about my top 10 horror movies of 2020. This is in somewhat of a rough order. When I do my top 10 list, I really don't put a ton of thought into the order. I think it's kind of arbitrary if there's only 10 movies. For the most part, there's not a big order, and it's the #1 spot that is the most important. So we're gonna kick it off with number 10, and that is Host. Host was a really big surprise for me this year. Although I do like found footage, it is not my favorite genre. I consider miss for a lot of people, but this one was really effective. I think the shorter runtime helped the story and the movie not overstay its welcome. It's just a really good, creepy, atmospheric ghost story done really, really well, shot on Zoom. The director directed the actors through Zoom remotely, and it's just really effective. It's on Shudder right now. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend Host. It was a lot of fun. Number 9, this movie really surprised me, also on Shudder, The Mortuary Collection. This movie was absolutely fantastic. Like found footage, anthology movies can also be hit or miss, and they can also overstay their welcome with too many stories, too long of a runtime, weaker segments than other segments, but this one really shined. A nice tight 4 stories. Clancy Brown, who is amazing in this, by the way, plays a mortician in a local mortuary. A girl stops by to get a job, and he goes on to tell some gruesome stories about how people have died throughout the years in his little town. The stories are phenomenal. They get progressively more weird, but the acting, the practical effects, the atmosphere, the colors, the direction is actually really nice. I did a review on this one, but definitely check out The Mortuary Collection. Next up, from one of the best up-and-coming directors out there, in my opinion, and that is VFW from Joe Begos. He also did a movie called Bliss, which I put on my underrated horror movies video, which you need to check out. A group of old Army veterans who are in a VFW just drinking their life away, and somebody stumbles in with some stolen property, and there are a whole bunch of nasty folks fighting to get in that VFW and get what this young person has stole from them. It's bloody, it's gruesome, shot on 16mm with all natural lighting, a lot of neon colors, kind of like what I have in the background here. It's phenomenal. Check out that, and if you haven't seen Bliss from Joe Begos, I highly recommend checking out that one as well. It's awesome. Number 7, Elijah Wood in the fantastic Come to Daddy. This movie was surprising at every turn that came around the corner. The acting, the story, the twists, the turns, Elijah Wood's character in general. Elijah Wood receives a letter from his long-lost father inviting him to come back home and see him, which is a surprise because he has not seen him in a very, very long time. Once he arrives at his father's home, he noticed there is something very strange going on. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but it's a very, very well-written, twisty-turning movie that really surprised me. Elijah Wood is making some really unique choices, and he produces a lot of really cool movies too. I highly suggest checking out Come to Daddy. So guys, I'm a big dumb dummy, and I was just editing my video and I realized I forgot to add my number 6. My number 6 was Beach House. Beach House was fucking awesome. I'm not gonna go back and set up the whole thing to re-record it, but I wanted you guys to know that if you have not seen The Beach House, you need to watch it because it's incredible. It's a really gnarly body horror movie, kind of Lovecraftian, a little Cronenbergian. It's a really, really good movie. So seek out The Beach House and watch that because it's really, really good. I actually did a review for it, so you can watch that. But yeah, I forgot to put Beach House in here, so on with the show. I'm a big dumb dummy, dumb. Next up, one that I do not own on Blu-ray and I will be purchasing this year is Renopal. The story revolves around a kind of lonely, sad guy living in his mom's basement, caring for her as she has dementia. One day he decides to go to a dating service. Now this movie takes place in the late 80s, early 90s, and before Tinder, before Match.com, you actually had to go to a place and sit down in front of a camera like I am right now and talk to the person that you want to meet. Hi, my name is Justin. I'm into long walks on the beach and da-da-da-da-da. And they would give that VHS tape to other hopeful singles, and that's how they met. That was the top tier technology for dating. Anyway, he decides to do that, and while he's at this studio making his little dating video, he comes across a cassette tape being sold, which features a virtual friend. You pop it in the VCR, and it's Will Wheaton playing this character, and he talks to you through the cassette tape. Hello, how are you? How was your day? Tell me how you felt about that. How was your childhood growing up? And this guy is down in his basement, down and out, sad, talking to this VHS tape, and it starts to kind of mess with his mind a little bit, and he starts to lose his grip on reality. It's a really interesting movie. Will Wheaton, who plays the Renopal, is fantastic. He played the main character in Stand By Me, and he was also in Star Trek and a couple of other things, but this was really one of my favorites of the year. Fantastic movie, Renopal. Number 4, controversial here. This isn't exactly a movie, but it is the second part of what I thought was one of my favorite horror movies, TV shows of the last several years, the sequel to Haunting of Hill House, which was The Haunting of Bly Manor. I can't even tell you how much I love this show. I know it was pretty hit or miss with a lot of people. Some thought it was a little slow, a little lacking on the horror elements. I thought it was an amazing combination of the turning of the screw. It's just an A+ ghost story. I'm a big fan of Mike Flanagan, who did Haunting of Hill House. He did Dr. Sleep. He did Hush. He's done some really amazing work. The Haunting of Bly Manor is right along the lines of his best work. I absolutely love it. It's sad. It's well acted. The set design is amazing. It's fantastic. If you've heard bad things about Bly Manor or mixed things about Haunting of Hill House, I encourage you to watch it and find out for yourself. I never like to listen to what other people say. I don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes. If I see something that's interesting, I watch it, and I'm really glad that I didn't pay attention to reviews or other people talking about it on YouTube or in written reviews, because I absolutely loved The Haunting of Bly Manor, and I feel like it got kind of a hard time. It got kind of beat up, and I hope that didn't hurt its performance, but I feel like maybe it did. And if you haven't seen it, definitely check out The Haunting of Bly Manor. It is an amazing ghost story, but it's more about the characters. There is a ton of ghosts. There's ghost elements in every single episode, but it really focuses on the characters and it makes you care about each character, and I found that to be really, really interesting. I highly suggest watching The Haunting of Bly Manor. Next up, number 3, and that is Swallow. This movie was absolutely incredible. Haley Bennett plays the wife of the unattentive and uninterested husband character. She spends her days alone trying to fill her time by herself, and she becomes depressed, and she actually develops a disease called pica, swallowing dangerous objects. It starts small with like a marble or something really small that progresses into her swallowing larger, more dangerous, sharp and jagged objects, and it is really intense. Now, if you go into this thinking you're going to see her swallowing knives and spitting blood all over the screen, it's not that type of a movie. It's more of a character piece, although there is some really disturbing moments. You are here for the characters, you're here for the story, the beautiful cinematography, the colorful film work. It is absolutely amazing from start to finish. That was actually the last movie I saw in the theater before the world went to shit and before I didn't go to the movies for a few months. That movie really stuck out as a standout of 2020, and I highly suggest checking out Swallow. It's really good. Next up, one of my absolute favorite of the year, and may end up being one of my favorite movies of all time, number 2 slot is Possessor. This is Brandon Cronenberg's second feature, I believe, the son of David Cronenberg, of course, and I think this movie, Possessor, stands up equally to anything that his father has ever done, and in fact, I like it more than a lot of David Cronenberg's filmography. David Cronenberg's older filmography doesn't resonate with me as much as a lot of other folks. I think he does really cool work. Of course, I loved what he did in The Fly. I got the Scream Factory set with featuring The Fly 1 and 2, as well as the older movies. The Fly is my favorite David Cronenberg movie. But Possessor, oh my god, what a fucking insane movie. The movie follows Andrea Riseborough, who is an assassin. She inhabits the body of another person close to who she's going to assassinate and assassinates them as that person. There's some kind of brain transference thing where she puts her mind inside of another body, and then that person in turn goes and shoots or stabs or kills somebody that her agency wants them to take out. But soon she meets her match when she is sent to assassinate somebody in the mind that she inhabits. She's not able to fully break through, and the person whose mind she's inside of realizes she's in there and begins to be able to have her thoughts and her memories and can affect things in her own life. It is brutal. There is some insane violence. There is some insane sequences in this movie, some amazing practical effects. From what I heard, Brandon Cronenberg achieved most, if not all, of the weird effects and weird shit that's in the movie in camera, so it all feels very real, very tangible. The soundtrack is incredible. The writing is top-notch. The cinematography is amazing. It's very dreamlike. It's very surreal. I think we are going to see huge things from Brandon Cronenberg. Possessor is phenomenal. Number 2 on my list. Check it out. It's amazing. Now, finally, for number 1 on the list, give me a little drum roll. I hope this movie isn't controversial. I really want to know your thoughts. The reason this next movie is number 1 is the suspense, the slow introduction into the story. Everything about this movie drew me in, from its dreamlike quality all the way till its shocking ending, and that is The Lodge. This movie absolutely blew me away. 2 children and their father cope with the loss of their mother and his wife. The father of the 2 children begins seeing somebody new, and they decided to go to a cabin to kind of bond this new family unit together. The dad and his new girlfriend, who he wants to marry, and his 2 children, who obviously don't want anything to do with this new person attempting to take the place of their mother. They do not like that. Now, I'm not going to give a lot away, but the new girlfriend has a strange history that's questioned by the children. Without giving spoilers, it is insanely hard to explain this movie, but I just have to ask that you take my word for it and give this movie a try. I promise this movie does not go where you think it's going to. This movie surprised me time after time. There's elements that have been compared to Hereditary. I don't know if it's coincidental. There's some actually similar shots and sequences and some visual aspects to the movie that have been compared to Hereditary. I don't know which movie had actually been written and directed first. There, I am aware of that. I know I'm going to see that in the comments, but I absolutely cannot recommend this enough. The performances are amazing. Riley Keough is amazing. Riley Keough, I'm not sure of her name. She's fantastic in this as the new girlfriend to the husband. I cannot recommend The Lodge enough. It's absolutely phenomenal. My personal number 1 of the year. And I think the reason it took place over, I think the reason this got the number 1 spot, at least for me, is it had the most emotional resonance as far as being grounded in reality. The characters seemed real, the performances were amazing, and I absolutely felt the emotions of the performances. A lot of the other movies in this list are pretty crazy. They're not exactly grounded in reality for the most part. I tend to connect a little bit more with stories that are a little bit more grounded in reality. And I did have a handful of honorable mentions that I am now going to dive into. My first honorable mention is We Summon the Darkness. This was a really, really fun, kind of satanic ritual style movie with Alexandria Daddario. She's absolutely stunning in this movie, about a group of girls who go to a concert. They run into a couple guys that may or may not be mixed up in some satanic stuff, but what this movie does is subverts your expectations after they go back to one of the people's house to party afterwards, and the movie takes a drastic turn, and it's not what you're expecting. So I would definitely highly recommend checking out We Summon the Darkness. It's kind of a horror comedy. I hate Usually when you use the term horror comedy, it cheapens the tone or cheapens the expectations of the movie. So there is some really good horror elements, but it'll also make you laugh a little bit at the same time. Johnny Knoxville's in it, and actually a really good performance from him. So I highly recommend checking out We Summon the Darkness. Next up, which is a movie I just watched a couple nights ago, and that is The Dark and the Wicked. A brother and sister duo come to visit their mom and their dad in a remote location. They live really rurally. The mom takes care of their ailing father, who seems to be in some sort of a comatose state. He's bedridden, he's not really conscious, and extremely creepy things start happening after they come against their mother's wishes. They receive phone calls. Their mother is telling them, do not come here. Do not come here. And they come anyway, of course. And maybe they should have stayed at home, because there is some fucked up things that happen in this movie. The vibe and the dread and the spooky imagery that is shown throughout this movie gave me the chills. It's that creepy. I highly recommend checking out The Dark and the Wicked. And one more that had I watched this before I made this list, probably would have been somewhere in my top 10, and that is The Wolf of Snow Hollow. I watched this movie last night. This movie absolutely blew me away. This is not your typical werewolf movie. I feel like werewolf movies are sort of underappreciated in the horror genre, or at least maybe underrepresented. There's not enough of them. This movie was absolutely a blast, and not your usual take on werewolf movies. In a small ski town, there is some brutal murders that take place. The public and a lot of the other members of the community seem to think that the murders are the work of some sort of large animal, possibly even a werewolf. But the lead character in the movie, he plays the sheriff of the town, is highly resistant to that idea. He thinks it has to be an individual. He's got a lot of his own issues as it is, dealing with alcohol and his relationship with his father, which is actually the main sheriff in town, played by Robert Forster in his very last role. Lots of stuff going on in this movie character-wise, and again, this is another movie that really subverts your expectations and takes you places that you are not expecting. This movie blew me away, frankly, and I highly recommend checking out The Wolf of Snow Hollow. And two more honorable mentions, the first of which being Butt Boy. I did do a review on this, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it before we get into my number one honorable mention, but this movie, with as ridiculous as the premise and as ridiculous as the title may suggest, this movie is a very well-crafted neo-noir horror thriller with some great acting, some great performances, good gore, really greasy characters, and kind of a down and dirty, gritty feel to it. I would like you to just jump right into this. I think this is one of those movies where you honestly do not want to know anything about it before you go into it. Maybe don't even watch my review quite yet until after you see the movie. Just look up Butt Boy on streaming and just watch it. It's good. My number one honorable mention was the return of Creepshow. They did an animated series. If you have Shudder, you know that they rebooted Creepshow as an anthology series, and they've done a couple of these animated special, the first of which being the Creepshow animated special that premiered a few months ago. It's phenomenal. It features two stories. The first of which being main character being voiced by Kiefer Sutherland, about a character whose plane has crashed on an island, and he takes drastic and gruesome measures to survive. The second story features the voice of Joey King, whose family is traveling through the desert and stumbles across an off-road carnival circus deal, and they go in there, and unbeknownst to them, they become members of the performance unwillingly. It's really, really good. I highly suggest the Creepshow animated series. Oh! And guys, that is my list. Thank you so much for watching. Now stay tuned and be sure you're subscribed, because I have a couple more top 10 of 2020 lists coming up. The first of which is going to be my top 10 Blu-ray 4K releases of 2020. What an amazing year for physical media 2020 was. Some fabulous physical media releases that I'm going to dive into on my next video. So stay tuned. Guys, make sure you like this video, subscribe, stay weird, and until next time, bye.
I love movies. Gosh, I love movies. I love watching them, and I love making them.